to another captivating journey through the Bible on our channel, Bible Stories. Today, we are about to dive into the remarkable and complex life of one of the most intriguing figures in the Bible, King Solomon. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to possess immeasurable wealth, unmatched wisdom, and rule over a vast and prosperous kingdom? This isn't just a tale of fantasy, it's the real-life story of Solomon, the man whose name has become synonymous with wisdom, yet whose life was filled with paradoxes. In this episode, we will unravel the mysteries behind Solomon's rise to power, his unprecedented reign of peace and prosperity, and the deep spiritual lessons we can draw from his journey. Solomon's life is a testament to the heights we can reach when we walk with God and the dangers that lurk when we stray from his path. As we explore the grandeur of Solomon's achievements and the profound wisdom he shared, we'll also confront the sobering reality of his eventual fall from grace, a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance in our own spiritual lives. Before we begin, I want to invite you to join our growing community by subscribing to Bible Stories. If you find inspiration and wisdom in today's video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment with your thoughts or questions, and share this video with your church group, family, and friends. Your support helps us continue bringing these meaningful stories to life, connecting us all in our journey of faith. Now let's dive into the extraordinary life of King Solomon, a story that has echoed through the ages. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to possess everything you could ever dream of? Immeasurable wealth, unmatched wisdom, and a kingdom as far as the eye could see. This isn't just a fantasy. It's the true story of one of the Bible's most intriguing figures, King Solomon. Solomon, his name is synonymous with wisdom, yet his life was full of contradictions. How could someone so wise make such profound mistakes? How could a man blessed by God ultimately fall from grace? Few figures in history are as towering or complex as Solomon, the third king of Israel. His reign marked the golden age of the Hebrew monarchy, a time of unprecedented peace and prosperity. But beneath the glitter of gold and the shine of success was a tale of human frailty and divine grace. As we delve into Solomon's story, we'll explore not just the facts, but the deeper truths behind them. We'll see how God can use even flawed individuals for his grand purposes, and perhaps we'll discover a bit of Solomon in ourselves. So are you ready to meet the man behind the legends, to understand the real Solomon beyond the myths? Get ready, because this isn't just a history lesson. It's a journey that might just change how you view wisdom, wealth, and the ways of God. Our story doesn't start with Solomon, but with his father, the legendary King David. Picture this, a unified kingdom, enemies defeated, and God's favor resting on Israel. Yet even in this golden era, dark clouds were gathering. Solomon was born into royal privilege as the son of David and Bathsheba, yes. The Bathsheba whose story began with scandal but ended in redemption. God had a plan for this child, declaring even before his birth that he would be a man of peace. The name Solomon means peace in Hebrew, a name that would shape his destiny. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Solomon's path to the throne was far from smooth. As the 10th son of David, he wasn't the obvious heir. His older brother Adonijah assumed the crown was his for the taking. Can you imagine the tension in the palace, the whispers, the plots, the uncertainty? It took a dramatic intervention to secure Solomon's future. As David lay on his deathbed, the prophet Nathan and Bathsheba reminded him of his promise to make Solomon king. In a decisive moment, David declared Solomon his successor, anointing him before all Israel. Picture the scene. A young Solomon, perhaps overwhelmed, suddenly thrust into the leadership of a powerful nation. The Bible tells us in 1 Kings 2:12, "So Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his rule was firmly established." But with great power comes great responsibility. Solomon faced immediate challenges. His father's last words included a daunting to-do list: deal with old enemies, reward loyal friends, and above all, follow God's ways. It was a trial by fire for the new king. Solomon's rise to the throne teaches us a powerful lesson. God's plans often unfold in unexpected ways. He can take a child born of a troubled union and elevate him to greatness. It's a reminder that our past doesn't dictate our future when God is involved. As we leave Solomon at the start of his reign, full of promise and potential, we can't help but wonder, how will this young king handle the immense responsibility placed on his shoulders? What will he do with the legacy his father left him? Now imagine being offered anything in the world by God himself. What would you ask for? Wealth? Long life? Victory over your enemies? This was the incredible choice facing young King Solomon in a dream that would change history. God appeared to Solomon at Gibeon and said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." 1 Kings 3:5. It was a divine blank check, a test of character that would reveal the heart of Israel's new king. Solomon's response wasn't what you might expect from a young man suddenly thrust into power. Instead of asking for personal gain, he requested wisdom to govern God's people. His exact words were, "Give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong." 1 Kings 3:9. This request pleased God so much that he granted Solomon not only unparalleled wisdom, but also what he didn't ask for: wealth, honor, and long life. It was a divine outpouring that would shape Solomon's reign and legacy. But what did this legendary wisdom look like in action? The Bible gives us a glimpse in the famous story of two women claiming the same baby. Solomon's solution offering to cut the child in half sounds brutal, but it revealed the true mother's love and the impostor's indifference. This judgment amazed the people, showing that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice. 1 Kings 3:28. Solomon's wisdom wasn't just about solving disputes. It extended to knowledge of the natural world, from plants to animals. He composed 3,000 proverbs and 105 songs. His insights into human nature and godly living are preserved in the books of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. But here's the thing about wisdom. It's not just about knowing facts. It's about applying knowledge rightly. Solomon's gift of wisdom was meant to be used in service to God and his people. It was a tool, not an end in itself. This gift challenges us today. Are we seeking wisdom to serve ourselves or to serve God and others? Are we using our knowledge and discernment to make a positive difference in the world? As we see Solomon step into his role as the wisest man who ever lived, we can't help but wonder, how will this extraordinary gift shape his reign? And more importantly, how will he use it? Now picture a kingdom at the height of its power, a land flowing with milk and honey, where silver was as common as stones. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was Israel under Solomon's rule. His reign ushered in an era of unprecedented prosperity and peace. The Bible tells us in 1 Kings 4:25, during Solomon's lifetime, Judah and Israel from Dan to Beersheba lived in safety, everyone under their own vine and under their own fig tree. Can you imagine such widespread peace and abundance? But this prosperity didn't happen by accident. Solomon was a master administrator and a visionary leader. He divided the kingdom into 12 districts, each responsible for providing for the royal household for 1 month of the year. This system ensured a steady flow of resources and distributed the burden evenly across the nation. Trade flourished under Solomon's rule. He established key alliances, including a partnership with Hiram, king of Tyre, which brought valuable cedar and cypress logs for his building projects. Solomon's fleet of trading ships brought exotic goods from far-off lands, filling the royal coffers with gold, silver, and precious stones. The scale of Solomon's wealth was staggering. In Kings 10:14 reports that the weight of the gold Solomon received yearly was 666 talents worth billions in today's terms. His throne was made of ivory and overlaid with pure gold, and even his drinking cups were made of gold. Silver in Solomon's days was considered of little value. But Solomon's prosperity wasn't just about material wealth. It was also a time of cultural and intellectual flourishing. The arts thrived, with music and literature reaching new heights. People came from all over the known world to hear Solomon's wisdom, bringing tribute and adding to Israel's cosmopolitan atmosphere. However, with great prosperity comes great responsibility. Solomon's lavish lifestyle and massive building projects required an enormous workforce. He instituted a labor force of 30,000 men from all Israel, sending them to Lebanon in shifts to work on his various projects. As we survey the dazzling splendor of Solomon's kingdom, we might feel a mix of awe and unease. Yes, it was a golden age for Israel, a fulfillment of God's promises to bless his people. But was all this opulence in line with God's vision for his people? Was Solomon using his resources wisely, or was he getting carried away? Solomon's prosperous reign shows us the potential for blessing when we follow God's wisdom, but it also raises questions about the dangers of excess and the responsibilities that come with abundance. As we continue our journey through Solomon's life, we're left wondering, how will this unprecedented prosperity affect Solomon's heart? Will he remain faithful to the God who blessed him so abundantly? Now imagine a building so magnificent, so awe-inspiring, that it would become the centerpiece of a nation's faith for centuries to come. This was Solomon's crowning achievement, the construction of the temple in Jerusalem. The temple wasn't just another building project, it was the fulfillment of a dream that had begun with Solomon's father, David. As we read in 1 Kings 5:5, Solomon declared, "I intend, therefore, to build a temple for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord told my father David." The scale of this undertaking was immense. Solomon enlisted 30,000 men from Israel, 70,000 carriers, and 80,000 stonecutters to work in the mountains. The supervision of this massive workforce required 3,300 foremen. Can you picture the bustling activity, the sound of hammers and chisels echoing across Jerusalem? But it wasn't just about manpower. The materials used were of the highest quality. Cedar from Lebanon, stones cut to size, gold, silver, and bronze. No expense was spared. The interior was paneled with cedar and overlaid with pure gold, and even the floor was covered with gold. The details of the temple's construction are meticulously recorded in Scripture, highlighting its significance. The Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant would rest, was a perfect cube, measuring 20 cubits in each direction. This precision wasn't accidental. It reflected the perfection and holiness of God. Perhaps most striking were the two bronze pillars. The entrance pillars, named Jachin and Boaz, were not merely architectural elements. They served as powerful symbols of God's strength and stability. The temple's construction took 7 years, and as it neared completion, the anticipation grew. Upon its completion, Solomon orchestrated a grand dedication ceremony, during which the Ark of the Covenant was brought in, sacrifices were offered, and Solomon delivered a profound prayer of dedication. At that moment, something extraordinary occurred, as described in 1 Kings 8, 10, 11. When the priests withdrew from the holy place, the cloud filled the temple of the Lord, and the priests could not perform their service because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled his temple. This divine manifestation signaled God's approval of Solomon's work, marking a moment of immense spiritual significance for Israel and ushering in a new chapter in their relationship with God. The temple stood not only as a testament to Solomon's devotion, but also to the skills and resources God had bestowed upon him. It was a place where heaven met earth, where God's presence dwelled among his people. However, as we admire this architectural and spiritual wonder, we might ponder, does God delight more in grand structures or in humble, obedient hearts? How do we balance external expressions of faith with internal devotion? The temple, shining under the Jerusalem sun, symbolized Israel's faith and prosperity, yet little did they know of the challenges that lay ahead. How would this magnificent structure shape Israel's future? And how would Solomon's relationship with God evolve after this monumental achievement? Imagine a kingdom so wealthy and renowned that rulers from across the known world sought an audience with its king. This was Israel under Solomon, a nation that had become a beacon of prosperity and wisdom in the ancient world. Solomon's fame spread far beyond Israel's borders, as noted in 1 Kings 4:34. From all nations, people came to listen to Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. Picture the bustling streets of Jerusalem filled with visitors from distant lands, all eager to witness this legendary king. Perhaps the most famous of these visitors was the Queen of Sheba, who arrived with a grand entourage bearing spices, gold, and precious stones. Her mission was to test Solomon with difficult questions, but Solomon's wisdom left her astonished. She exclaimed, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true, but I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes." 1 Kings 10:6-7. Solomon's wealth was staggering. The Bible records that his annual gold income was 666 talents, equivalent to about 25 tons, and silver was considered of little value in his time. His drinking vessels were made of gold, and he had a magnificent throne of ivory overlaid with gold. But Solomon's success wasn't just in accumulating wealth. He was also a shrewd trader and diplomat. He formed alliances with neighboring kingdoms, notably with Hiram of Tyre, which opened up trade routes, bringing exotic goods to Israel. Solomon's fleet of trading ships would return every 3 years, laden with gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Solomon's building projects were equally impressive. Beyond the temple, he constructed a palace complex that took 13 years to complete. He fortified cities, built storage facilities, and even constructed the Forest of Lebanon, a summer retreat. His military might was formidable. The Bible mentions that he had 4,000 stalls for chariot horses and 12,000 horses. In an era when cavalry was the pinnacle of military technology, this was a clear demonstration of Israel's power. However, with all this wealth and fame came danger. As Solomon's reputation grew, so did the temptation to rely on his own strength rather than on God. The influx of foreign visitors brought not only trade goods, but also foreign customs and beliefs. Solomon's international fame raises some challenging questions for us today. How do we handle success and recognition? Do we use our resources and influence to glorify God, or do we become enamored with our own achievements? As we observe Solomon at the height of his power and fame, we can't help but wonder, will he remain faithful to the God who blessed him so abundantly, or will the allure of wealth and international acclaim lead him astray? In the glittering courts of Jerusalem, as foreign dignitaries paid homage and trade ships unloaded their exotic cargoes, the stage was set for both triumph and tragedy. How would Solomon navigate the challenges that came with such unprecedented success? As we delve further into Solomon's story, we find ourselves in a world of luxury, diplomacy, and danger. Solomon's reign had brought Israel to new heights of prosperity and influence, but with these came new temptations and challenges. Solomon was a master of international relations. His marriages were not just matters of the heart, but were also political alliances. The Bible tells us in 1 Kings 11:3 that he had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. Imagine the complexity of managing such a household. His most famous marriage was to the daughter of Pharaoh, sealing an alliance with Egypt. This was unprecedented. For the first time, an Israelite king was considered an equal to the mighty Pharaoh. But this marriage came with a cost. Solomon built a palace for his Egyptian wife, bringing foreign cultural influences into the heart of Jerusalem. These marriages opened doors for trade and diplomacy, but also introduced Israel to foreign religious practices. Solomon's wives turned his heart after other gods. 1 Kings 11:4. The king, who had built the temple to the one true God, now allowed high places to be built for Chemosh, Molech, and other foreign deities. It's a startling turn of events. How could the wisest man in history make such a grave error? Perhaps it was a gradual process where one compromise led to another until Solomon found himself far from the path God had set for him. The influence of these foreign customs wasn't just religious, it affected the entire culture of Israel. The simple agrarian lifestyle gave way to a more cosmopolitan, luxurious way of life. Solomon's court became a melting pot of cultures, languages, and ideas. On one hand, this cultural exchange brought benefits. Israel was exposed to new technologies, arts, and knowledge from across the known world. Solomon's wisdom was enriched by insights from many cultures, but it also posed a threat to Israel's unique identity as God's chosen people. Solomon's foreign relationships present us with a complex picture. They showcase his diplomatic skills and Israel's growing influence, but they also reveal the dangers of compromise and the subtle ways our hearts can be led astray. This chapter of Solomon's life raises some challenging questions for us today. How do we engage with the world around us without losing our distinct identity? How can we appreciate diversity while remaining true to our core beliefs? As we watch Solomon navigate these treacherous waters of international politics and cultural exchange, we're left wondering, will he be able to maintain his devotion to God amidst all these foreign influences? And what will be the long-term consequences of these relationships for Israel? In the grand palaces of Jerusalem, as foreign princesses brought their customs and beliefs, the seeds of future conflict were being sown. How would this play out in the remaining years of Solomon's reign and in the generations to come? As we turn to this somber chapter in Solomon's life, we find a stark contrast to the glittering success of his earlier years. The wisest man in history was about to face the consequences of his unwise choices. The Bible doesn't mince words about Solomon's fall. 1 Kings 11:4 tells us, "As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been." It's a chilling statement, isn't it? The man who had built the temple and written profound words about wisdom had now turned away from the source of that wisdom. Solomon's decline wasn't sudden, it was a gradual erosion. His foreign wives brought their gods with them, and Solomon, perhaps in the name of diplomacy or personal desire, allowed the worship of these deities. He built high places for Chemosh and Molech, and the once faithful king, who stood as a symbol of devotion to God, had now become a figure of compromise, turning towards other false gods. But God did not remain silent. He appeared to Solomon twice, warning him of the dire consequences of his actions. Unfortunately, Solomon did not heed these warnings. This serves as a stark reminder that even the wisest among us can fall if we do not stay vigilant. The repercussions of Solomon's decisions were severe and far-reaching. God declared that he would tear the kingdom from Solomon, leaving only one tribe for his son, solely for the sake of David's legacy. This decision planted the seeds of Israel's future division during Solomon's reigns. As Solomon's reign continued, external threats began to emerge. Hadad the Edomite and Rezin of Syria became adversaries, signaling the decline of the peace that had characterized much of Solomon's rule. Even within Israel, trouble was brewing. Jeroboam, one of Solomon's officials, was prophesied to rule over 10 tribes of Israel after Solomon's death. Perhaps most tragically, Solomon's spiritual legacy was marred. The king who had begun his reign by seeking wisdom from God ended it by leading his people into idolatry. The temple, once the pinnacle of his devotion to God, now stood in a city dotted with shrines to foreign gods. Solomon's decline prompts profound questions. How could someone so blessed and wise fall so far? It reminds us of the constant need for vigilance in our spiritual lives. No matter how much we know or achieve, we are always vulnerable to temptation and compromise. As we reflect on Solomon's fall, we should ask ourselves, where have we allowed compromise to creep into our lives? How can we guard our hearts against subtle influences that may lead us away from God? The story of Solomon's decline is a cautionary tale, showing us that wisdom without obedience is futile, that God's blessings require faithful stewardship, and that our actions have lasting consequences, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. As Solomon's reign drew to a close, so did the golden age of Israel. The kingdom that had reached such heights was now on the brink of division. What would be the final legacy of this complex king, and what lessons can we learn from his life of triumph and tragedy? As we reach the end of Solomon's story, we are left with a legacy that echoes through history, speaking to us even today. How do we sum up a life marked by such dramatic highs and lows? What can we learn from a king who, despite his wisdom, ultimately lost his way? Solomon's legacy is a study in contrasts. On one hand, there's the magnificent temple, a wonder of the ancient world that stood as a testament to God's presence among his people for centuries. We also have the books of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon, which continue to offer profound insights into life, love, and the fear of the Lord. On the other hand, there's the divided kingdom that emerged after Solomon's death, a direct result of his disobedience. The golden age of Israel gave way to centuries of conflict and eventual exile, reminding us that our actions can have consequences long after we're gone. Perhaps Solomon's greatest legacy lies in the lessons we can draw from his life. Here are a few to consider. Wisdom must be paired with obedience. Solomon possessed unparalleled wisdom, but knowledge alone wasn't enough. As James 1:22 reminds us, we must be doers of the word, not just hearers. Success can be a double-edged sword. Solomon's prosperity brought great benefits, but also great temptations. How we handle success is often a greater test of character than how we handle adversity. Our choices impact others. Solomon's decisions affected not only his own life, but also the entire nation of Israel and future generations. We must always consider the broader implications of our actions. God's grace endures despite our failings. Despite Solomon's fall, God didn't completely abandon his promises to David's lineage. This offers hope for all of us when we stumble. The heart is central. Solomon's outward achievements were impressive, but in the end, it was the state of his heart that mattered most to God. As Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Perhaps the most poignant lesson comes from Solomon himself in the book of Ecclesiastes. After experiencing all that life had to offer, he concluded, "Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind." Ecclesiastes 12:13. As we reflect on Solomon's life, we might ask ourselves, how are we using the gifts and opportunities God has given us? Are we remaining faithful in times of blessing as well as in times of trial? Are we leaving a legacy that points others toward God? Solomon's story is ultimately one of human potential and human frailty. It shows us the heights we can reach when we walk with God and the depths to which we can fall when we turn away. But it also reminds us of God's enduring faithfulness even when we are faithless. In the end, Solomon's life challenges us to pursue wisdom, yes, but more importantly, to pursue a heart fully devoted to God. In that pursuit lies true success, lasting impact, and a legacy that honors the one who gives us everything. As we conclude our exploration of King Solomon's life, we are left with much to ponder. Solomon's story is one of great triumphs and deep tragedies, a life filled with unparalleled wisdom, but also profound mistakes. Through his journey, we see the incredible potential God has placed within each of us and the importance of keeping our hearts fully devoted to him. Solomon's legacy offers us timeless lessons about the pursuit of wisdom, the perils of compromise, and the enduring faithfulness of God, even when we falter. So as we reflect on Solomon's life, let's ask ourselves, how are we using the gifts and opportunities that God has given us? Are we staying true to his path, even in times of prosperity and success? The story of Solomon challenges us to seek not just wisdom, but a heart that remains steadfast in our devotion to God. For it is in that unwavering commitment that true success lies. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life of King Solomon. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Bible Stories for more deep dives into the timeless truths of Scripture. Don't forget to like this video, share your insights in the comments below, and spread the word by sharing this video with your church group, family, and friends. Together, we can continue to grow in faith and understanding. Until next time, may God's wisdom guide you and his grace sustain you.
What did you think of that, eh?
Half truth.
Half truth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what happened? The Ark of the Covenant, yeah, was taken by David II, the son of Menelik, the son of Makeda, Queen Makeda, and King Solomon. They call him David II, but the Ethiopians call him Menelik I.
Okay.
He took the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia, and up to this day, it is in Ethiopia. Yeah. So that's where the missile, yeah, the Ark of
They
the
didn't
Covenant
add that bit.
is in Ethiopia. Yeah, it is there. And people go there and worship there. But you cannot see it. It is sealed until the second coming of Christ.
Thank you, A, for that input right there. If that was the first time you had listened to that, King Solomon, chat back in the comment section below. And I hope you're enjoying watching.